Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, we're going to react to the evolution of tornado footage. Now, tornado videos for me are probably the most fun or among the most fun to watch, just because you get to see them, like the raw power of nature. Here in England, at least my region of England, the South, tornadoes don't happen, or at least they don't happen to the degree that they do in America. We don't see anything close to, a massive tornado that's picking up cars, ripping through houses. You just don't see them. And obviously they're massively damaging. They end up costing the city billions sometimes, often causing fatalities. There is something to be said for just the sheer, how can I describe it? I want to use the word majestic, but it doesn't feel fitting. But, it's insane seeing just wind do that. So it's going to be fun to see this video, just how it tracks through history, the basic cameras that we had 100 years ago compared to the super, high-tech things we have now, even smartphone cameras. So yeah, this should be a really cool video.
Tornadoes are fascinating. They can be both beautiful and terrifying and tragic all at the same time. They are definitely, as Rusty from Twister says, the wonder of nature.
It's the wonder of nature, baby!
And what does he mean by that? The wonder of nature. Well, seeing
Rest in peace, Mr. Hoffman.
a tornado is kind of like seeing a ghost. There's actually that stereotype that if the tornado sirens go off, people actually run to the porch with their camcorder or smartphone rather than go to the basement. Full disclaimer, you should go to the basement if the tornado sirens are going off. Don't film, go to the basement. But who was the first to go on their porch and film a tornado? In fact, who was the first to take a photo? First painting? First mention? These are all things that we are going to discuss in today's video on the evolution of tornado footage. I even got this chart. You know me, I love my charts.
I love the 80s music. It's just so retro.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Before we get into the video, be sure to subscribe for more tornado content. That's all we do here. Mostly, we do other stuff too, but if you like tornadoes, if you're a tornado nerd like me, you should be subscribed. All right, let's get into the video. Phase 1, early history. Okay, before we get to photos and videos, what is the oldest mention? Well, before tornadoes were called tornadoes, they were called cyclones. And before they were called cyclones, they were called whirlwinds. Now, there's actually several mentions of whirlwinds in the Hebrew Bible. None of them are specific enough to be definitively what we call a tornado today. Perhaps the earliest depiction of a tornado comes from the famous Greek philosopher Aristotle, who in 350 BC, from a series of books called Meteorologica, or simply Meteorology, Aristotle describes tornadoes as the spiral which descends to the earth and drags with it the cloud which it cannot shake off. It moves things by its wind in the direction in which it is blowing in a straight line, and whirls round by its circular motion and forcibly snatches up whatever it meets. We're talking
That's a tornado right there. So we're talking thousands of years ago.
about tornadoes here. Straight line, destroys everything in its path. Definitely a tornado. Moving ahead about 400 years, we come across a man by the name of Pliny the Elder, who, by the way, is like the grandfather of encyclopedias. He said in his book, Historia Naturalis, which translates to natural history, that cloud which draweth water to it, as if it were a long pipe. So clearly, he's talking about that basic tornado shape, keyword long pipe. Now, this wasn't just a tornado, it was specifically a water spout, which technically isn't a supercell level tornado, but beggars can't be choosers in these early days. Now, let's move ahead about 1400.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be amazed that there's records of tornadoes going back this far. But it is still quite cool, isn't it? The fact that somebody, 2,000 years ago saw the exact same thing that we see today.
100 years to Christopher Columbus, who also saw a water spout during his second voyage in 1495. A lot of the early descriptions of whirlwinds were indeed water spouts, because water spouts are actually pretty common, and obviously water travel was a major part of traveling and all that stuff back in the day. So, you saw a lot of water spouts. But what about on the ground, legit Oklahoma level tornado?
Like
We're
EF5.
talking supercell tornado. What was the first mention of that? Well, Machiavelli, who lived between 1469 and 1527, described a tornado crossing Tuscany back in 1532. So that's probably a legit tornado. So we can talk about words and accounts all day long, but let's move on to the first actual depiction of a tornado. An argument can be made for a tapestry, which was part of a larger series of tapestries known as the Conquest of Tunis. This originates way back to 1550. This tapestry features many different weather events, from rain and storms over the Iberian Peninsula. And what do we have here?
Yeah,
A great
that's a tornado.
candidate for the first depiction
Right
of a
there.
tornado. This little cone rope tornado on the left side of this mountain. Pretty sweet. That's a legit tornado right there. So we have definitive proof that by at least 1550, some people were featuring tornadoes in their artwork. Now, that tapestry was dedicated to weather in general and to the landscapes in general. And
I mean, people back then probably thought it was like God. I mean, there's probably people today that still think, you know, it's God. And it might be.
it's huge. What was the first depiction of a tornado dedicated directly to that tornado? Well, about 40 years later, we come across a drawing of a tornado that hit the town of Augsburg, Germany. It's even dated as July 2nd, 1586. It was described as a threatening cloud that was on the ground for an hour and a half, and towards the end of its lifespan, the tail began to sharpen, and then the cloud went back up into the atmosphere. So we have an entire description of the tornado event itself. From 500 years ago, that's pretty freaking sweet. Now we're moving on to phase 2, real images.
All right.
But
Let's
before we
see
get
some
to the
early
first
day
photo of a
tornado
tornado,
photos.
we gotta talk about some tornado damage photos, because we actually have photos of tornado damage before the actual first photograph of a tornado itself. So I don't know what the specific first tornado damage photo is, but here's a picture of the aftermath of a tornado in 1870 in Iowa. It's not the highest quality of photos, but you can definitely make out some damage. Another early damage photo comes from 1878 in Connecticut, and we have many photos from the 1883 Rochester, Minnesota F5 tornado. Okay, so what's the first photo of a tornado? There's some debate. However, the first tornado photo is indeed the 1826-1884 Garnett, Kansas tornado photo. Now this photo appears to be of a moderately strength tornado, likely roping out, and it was taken by A. Adams. On the back, the description reads, April 25th around 5 p.m. Keep that in mind, April 25th around 5 p.m. However, if you look up oldest tornado photo on the internet, you're going to get a photo of this tornado. This is an
look at
F4
that.
tornado near Howard, South Dakota.
Look at those little, kind of like little horns.
And many people talk about this being the first tornado photo. However, this tornado occurred on August 28th, 1884. So that's 4 months after the Garnett, Kansas tornado photo. This is a great photo. Obviously, this is a stronger tornado. However, there's no doubt in my mind that
And the
the Garnett,
darkness of
Kansas
it.
photo is definitely the first tornado photo, assuming the dates are correct. Photos of tornadoes would slowly become more common in the late 19th century. A few examples of early tornado photos would be from July 13th, 1890 in Lake Gervais, Minnesota. Here's another photo of the first tornado photographed in North Dakota in 1895. Here's one in Oklahoma from the same year. And the first Iowa tornado I could find was from 1899 in Kingley.
Whenever the tornadoes have this super dark color, I know this is probably something to do with the camera. They just look so sinister, you know.
99 in Kingley. This depiction of the 1893 Pomeroy, Iowa tornado might be the first example of a multi-vortex tornado, or perhaps a twin tornado. Now, many of us love to Photoshop tornadoes. I mean, I do it for my thumbnails. But a man going by Mr. Connor may have been the first. He would take this photo of a tornado and he would superimpose it onto different backgrounds. Look at these 4 photographs. They all feature the exact same tornado. However, this tornado is occurring in 4 different scenarios. So he was probably our first tornado photoshopper. What's the first pretty high quality photo?
Look at that.
Well, the first high quality photo that I could find was from June 2nd, 1929 in Hartner, Kansas. Look, you can even see the bottom of the tornado tearing up the ground. Great photo for sure. Well, now it's time to move on to phase 3. video.
All right. Let's go.
Kind of like the Howard, South Dakota tornado, there's actually a few misconceptions out there. If you look up oldest tornado video or first tornado video, many people will point to the Corn, Oklahoma tornado in 1951. And here's the footage of that specific tornado. I actually mentioned this as the first tornado video in a previous video of mine. However, the first actual tornado to be filmed comes from the British path, and it appears to be a thin rope tornado in Cuba in 1933. So about 20 years before the Corn, Oklahoma tornado. I will say that the Corn, Oklahoma tornado is way better quality, and it's the first video of an anti-cyclonic tornado, which means it moves the opposite direction of like 99% of other tornadoes. The earliest tornado featured in a film has to go to The Wizard of Oz. It is possible that there was an earlier movie that featured a tornado, however, I could not find one. So if you know of one, be sure to let me know in the comments. But The Wizard of Oz tornado is absolutely amazing. This tornado was put together by head technician Buddy Gillespie. This tornado footage was so good that it was used in several other films. This includes the film High Barbary from 1947, which out the window uses the exact same footage from The Wizard of Oz. The first depiction of buildings being torn apart.
When was The Wizard of Oz released? I think it's one of the first movies that Hollywood made or something. Isn't it like 190? Is it the 20s? Like when?
Art has to go to the 1953 Warner Robins Georgia tornado, a tornado video featured heavily on this channel. In the Warner Robins video, you can actually see homes being torn off their foundation. This video was way ahead of its time for how close it is to the actual tornado and for the amount of damage it captures. About 5 years later, we come across the first full-length tornado documentary, which features the entire lifespan of a tornado that hit Dallas, Texas on April 2nd, 1957. At least 10 people lost their lives in this specific tornado. Some of the video of the downtown being hit is very high quality. Moving ahead to the first tornado captured during a live broadcast. On April 3rd, 1964, a large F5 tornado struck the city of Wichita Falls, Texas, a city which is kind of a tornado magnet. This tornado took the lives of 7 people and stayed on the ground for 35 minutes. KAUZ TV6 reported on the tornado from the ground, and this was the first live capture of a tornado. This footage also has an early example of a radar hook echo.
At this time, a little reminiscent of a situation we had here, I believe, back in the summer of, was it 1959? When Channel 6 made a television first by putting on the air live a tornado.
Finally, we get to the first helicopter footage. I couldn't find the actual video, but the first helicopter footage of a tornado occurred on May 22nd, 1981 by the Ranger 9 helicopter on KWTV in Clinton, Oklahoma. If anyone knows where this footage is, please let me know because I really want to see it.
Oklahoma really gets a ton of tornadoes, doesn't it? I think, is Oklahoma one of the Tornado Alley states? I think it is. Ooh.
And finally, we are now in phase 4, the modern era.
Yeah, social media.
As video camcorders became more readily available in the 1980s and 90s, we start to see a lot more tornado footage, especially when it comes to amateur video. So bringing it back to the intro of this video, who really was the first person to go film a tornado rather than go to the basement? Well, sources say that Ted Rubble from Kalamazoo, Michigan, filmed the first amateur video of a tornado with his camcorder on May 13th, 1980. He stepped outside of the camcorder store and turned his camera and filmed the tornado drop from the sky. So this was the first amateur video. Home videos of tornadoes became way more common throughout the 80s and the 90s. I want to mention a few notable examples of classic home tornado videos. Perhaps the most famous is the 1991 Andover McConnell Air Force Base
thickness
footage.
of it. It's
This
so
video
wide.
is absolutely ridiculous. Seriously, the tornado
And the
like,
debris
was right in front of them. It's just insane. Another classic home video is the 1991 Gulf Lake, Minnesota tornado.
Any of you guys watching this that have actually, I'm sure there's probably many of you that have seen a tornado in the flesh. Like, what does it feel like? Like, does it feel like you're being pulled towards it, or have you always kind of got inside into the basement, as soon as you can? Like, have you ever been outside with a tornado, in the distance? What does the wind feel like? Is it super windy?
Video. This video features some very famous quotes.
Oh, there goes Bob's boat.
Oh, I hope not.
Whoa!
Hey, can I make the windows? Whoa! Get away from the windows! Tree just blew over.
Bob, look at that tree over there.
Look at it! Get away from the windows! Get away! Get away! Get away!
My favorite home video might be the 1998 Columbus, Nebraska tornado footage, which is just amazing. I love the quality. It looks scary beyond belief. A great piece of footage.
Like, what makes some of them so big and so thin?
Older tornado videos just kind of have a weird eeriness to them that I really enjoy. By the way, links for all these videos are in the description. Moving ahead in the evolution of tornado footage, we enter what I call the Discovery Storm Chasers era. This is my childhood right here. This is where we see the birth of celebrity storm chasers, including Brit, Sean Casey, and Tim Samaras. While filming and learning about tornadoes was the main goal of the Discovery Storm Chasing teams, there was a huge effort towards intercepting a tornado, aka capturing footage from inside a tornado. There were a few methods, one being a satellite dome camera left behind in the path, the other method being riding out the storm inside a tornado intercept vehicle. Sean Casey made great effort in intercepting the storm with his TIV-2, and he was finally successful on May 27th, 2013, when the TIV-2 filmed the inside of a tornado in Kansas. Reed Timmer was able to film the inside of a tornado in Aurora, Nebraska on June 17th, 2009. There's also a few other early examples. Many have become well known from capturing tornadoes and uploading them to YouTube. Perhaps the best example is Pecos Hank, and I'm sure you've all heard of him. He's like the GOAT tornado YouTuber. There are other examples though. Reed Timmer has a great YouTube presence. Skip Talbot is one that should be mentioned, as well as Ryan Hall, y'all, who does tornado forecasting rather than tornado chasing. Tornado videos are becoming more and more common since people have smartphones and they carry a camera with them everywhere they go. So we're getting a lot more tornado videos from places like Europe and Asia. We've also entered the era of drones. Reed Timmer has captured a lot of great tornado footage using a drone, as well as this YouTuber known as More Pie. Still hoping for that tornado drone intercept footage, so keep an eye out for that. Well, there you have it. That's the evolution of the documentation of tornadoes. Be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.
Great video. Great video. It was so much fun just to see the really early depictions of tornadoes. They must have been thinking, what the hell is this? What am I seeing right now? Is this the end of the world? You know, are we going to start hearing the trumpets and all that stuff? Like, they must have just, because there was no documentation, or very, very little. They had no idea when it would end, how long it would last. Yeah, it must have, just to be in that era, like we're talking sort of the you know, BC, sort of like the really early era, would have been just incredible to see a tornado. But, you know, I don't want to say that I wish England had more tornadoes, because they are obviously very dangerous sometimes. But it would be really cool just to see one in the flesh, man. I really want to. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.